with Yujin and Trisha from the Eldest Daughters Collective. Happy to have you. Trisha, Domingo, is authenticity coach and Scrum Master who specialize in helping high-achieving oldest daughters navigate burnout and more gracefully move through juggling career, family obligations, caretaking, and living a balanced and joyful life. We are so happy to have you both back. We're so happy to have you both. Yujin, welcome back. And we will dive more into the oldest daughters and how that plays in the family, career, friendship, romance, and everything else today.
Let's do it.
Amazing. Welcome. So before we get started, this is something that we asked Eugene last week, but Trisha, is there anything else you would like to tell us about who you are besides what's on the box? Something fun about you.
Something fun. Oh my gosh. I'm also a model and pole dancer. Yeah, I'm a Scrum Master by trade as well. So I have both left brain and right brain.
I don't think I heard of it before. What is Scrum Master? Sounds really cool.
It's very similar to project management work. In tech, there's something called the systems development lifecycle. And so basically the life cycle itself is you have a product and then you have business owners and business analysts, and they just work together. And you have the beginning of the life cycle is when you gather requirements. So you're just working on analysis and design, and then it moves on to development and then testing, and then sometimes third-party testing as well. So a Scrum Master's job is just to make sure that all of that is moving very smoothly.
I love how the way that you have described yourself to be like your job very much seems to be like you have to stay organized. You have to be on this perhaps non-creative ways of being in the workplace. However, you're complementing that with a lot of creativity in your life.
Yeah, I think so. With the Scrum Master role, actually, I'm doing a lot of facilitation also, and just like shepherding the team and making sure that we're staying on track and adhering to specific guidelines that are set for us. So I like that, even though it is, I wouldn't really call it like super technical, but I would say it does require like a little bit of analytics, but I do get that creativity in the sense that with facilitation, at least, you are sometimes given the keys.
So I'm really excited to hear more about this journey of both of you, actually, of choosing your careers. And maybe Linda and I can also express a little bit of our choices of careers too, and how that came to be, and how being eldest daughters have impacted all of those. So as we're getting started, both of you are representing the Eldest Daughters Collective. And Eugene gave us a little bit of a background of your works, but we would love to hear a little bit more about like the purpose and mission for the Eldest Daughters Collective and what you all are up to.
Great. Trisha, I can get us started and then add on anything else. For me, the mission for Eldest Daughters Collective is it's intentionally a racial affinity space intersecting with another identity, being eldest. And this was super important in our organizing because we noticed that there's a specific need for Black, Indigenous, people of color who also are eldest and only daughters to come together. There's a specific lens that also comes in with like immigration, where I was noticing first, a lot of the people in my life were eldest daughters. And I think that's by design, is that we find each other and we resonate with one another. And then secondly, there are specific types of experiences with the intersection of our racial identities and immigration identities where I was like, this is special. There's something special here, and there needs to be a space curated for the sacredness of these identities coming together. And the reality that there are just key differences that we were noticing in terms of eldest daughters who hold either immigrant or BIPOC identity. It's different when you don't have those. So we wanted to create a special place for that centers the healing of those identities. And what we're up to, I think I mentioned last time that our theme for the year as a collective is community care. So we're trying to enact, now I'm thinking of like Yoda, there's no try. We are enacting community care work through our programming. So we have, Trisha, I'd love for you to talk about the space that's coming up virtually. Our monthly meetings, community care has been woven in. And a big part of this is talking about how community care and being in relationship with people is it's like a muscle to be built and made stronger over time. It's not just someone who has it or doesn't. So that's all I'll say about that for now. What would you add, Trisha?
Yeah, I would just say, like, very much echoing. I feel like there's a lot of people in my life as well that were eldest daughters, and we do become very attracted to each other because we have a lot of the same life experiences. And yeah, this community is just so special because I feel like something that could have been super useful growing up. And it's like our way of providing a love letter to all the other eldest daughters and to, just people who are looking to heal and be in community together. And there's a lot of pressure and responsibility that is put on eldest daughters. And sometimes you don't necessarily feel like you might not be able to feel like, or really don't have the ability to speak about this with your family. Maybe you don't really have that many friends either. And so one of the things that one of our like upcoming workshops and community spaces that we have is actually for eldest daughters and just navigating complex family systems. And we're going to be talking a little bit about estrangement as well. Super close to my heart, and I'm sure.
As eldest daughters, we hear a lot of difficult relationships that they have with their parents, especially moms. And we've also heard that some of the younger sons, they end up having a better relationship with moms because they could, more easily, I would say, or more accessibly build that relationship. Yeah. Whereas the eldest daughter seems to have a lot more barriers, emotional barriers in trying to navigate the relationship with their parents.
Oh my gosh, Sujin, can I just tell you something? I remember years ago, I think I was in either I was in college or right before then. I looked up a Korean family and marriage therapist for my parents. Did I ask them if that's what they wanted? Absolutely not. But I was like, I think y'all should go to therapy. So I literally looked one up, called her, and she was like, so listen, you can't make an appointment on behalf of your Korean parent to go to therapy. But I want you to know, I have a ton of eldest Korean daughters reaching out to me about therapy for their parents, often. So she was like, I see you, take care of yourself. But unfortunately, you can't make an appointment for them. And I thought that was like the most eldest daughter moment ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, Linda, we get that call all the time too.
I made that call too personally, not maybe family therapy because I knew I wasn't ready for it and not my family were ready for it. But I definitely have called for behalf of my mom who really needed therapy. I'm like, I'm not your therapist. You need to talk to a professional. So I did all the research, calling each one of them, doing the consultation calls, making sure you'll be a good match for my mom, right? And then making that appointment and paying for it so she doesn't back out. What do you say? There's no refund. That worked, and that did help my mom. But we really do get a lot of calls. All the daughters in therapy, they start with themselves because their family's not willing to go. And then they come to the realization, like, I really want this for my family. And start having the conversation, like, will you see me and my mom, particularly with moms a lot. And unfortunately, a lot of times moms say no in Korea's Asian immigrant family system. So it's oldest daughter continuing their therapy journey without them. But once you have ability to see things more clear view and have better idea on what could be and better realistic expectation, things can still change, but it is not easy when you're the only one who's wanting that change. So
absolutely. Yeah. I also feel like between the relational part for eldest daughters and trying to get back into therapy, not only are a lot of eldest daughters seeking therapy for their moms, but they're actually also, we've gotten calls where the eldest daughters are calling on behalf of their parents and asking for couples therapy for their parents. Between the parent relationship as a couples relationship. And you're taking on all of these like middleman roles. You both are nodding.
It's the worst. It's not really. I think it's just been part of my experience to hear just like one side of the story and to feel just like super weird about it, but not being able to be like, and not knowing you should be speaking to like your wife's? This is very inappropriate. Like within the same day, across many hours, like there's like mom's side or oh, your appa's annoying me. Appa did this, appa did that. It's appa or my brother, right? And then if it's not one of those two, she'd go to someone else talking about me. And then a few hours later, oh, why is your Oma like this? And always does this. She always scolds me. And Appa works so hard. I'm just in the middle, just nodding to both of them as a child. And definitely thinking about times where I was getting information that was not probably even age appropriate, where it's like, I know all these things about finances, which I mean, that this is another topic, but I think brought in a lot of guilt and like scarcity fear for me as a child, like early. Is like seeing my parents immigrate here and then seeing them struggle in a very specific way that I think my brother saw less of.
And I have to add, we hear daughter calling for their parents, but we also hear oldest daughters wanting to make therapy appointment for their younger siblings. And it's mostly younger brothers. We all need it. And they do the whole thing. Look out for the therapist, even paying for it, making the appointment, and just show up. You need it. So we definitely see a lot of oldest daughters like taking the initiative to get their family the help they need.
Yeah. And I know we touched a little bit on this in the past too, but that intergenerational piece has been so big in adapting just that eldest daughter role even harder, because I also have a mom who is an eldest daughter as well. I'm curious to hear about both of yours, actually, if you relate to that.
My mom's actually the 6 daughters. So yeah, my mom's the youngest and my dad is the oldest. He's the second oldest out of 5 or 6 as well.
In terms of, because your mom was the youngest, and of course, youngest of 6 of the daughters, especially. So I imagine that a lot of responsibilities, like she was able to perhaps not have to take on as much because there's all these daughters above her as siblings that was taking care of her. I'm imagining that she was like the baby of the household. Do you see any personality or characteristic about your mom that you may or may not relate to?
Yeah, I think like for a while, I think I was very resistant to comparing myself to her because I couldn't really see a lot of myself in my mom. And I have a much different relationship with her now, but I didn't really see her as somebody that I was close to. Things started happening in life. And I was shown very quickly just how alike we actually are. And it's funny because I think sometimes you don't realize like when you are carrying traits or you're carrying habits that your parents have and then to see it play out and then like respectively look back and be like, oh, that was very much like what mommy would do. Or that is something that like dad would say, ooh. But yeah, I think it went from being like, ooh, I don't feel like super close to this person until, oh, okay, I can actually feel like I can be myself around you. And there was just a lot of like misunderstandings growing up in like things that
Something that I have a hard time relating to because my mom was oldest daughter and then having that. But I have heard stories where having youngest daughter mom and then being the oldest daughter. And everybody's different, but there's definitely a dynamic, right? And the youngest daughter having the resentment towards older siblings who didn't include them, right? And then getting triggered when they see the older daughter, like, what? Be cool older sibling and do their own thing with their peers and not including their younger siblings sometimes. And then it will trigger the mom. And then they will. So I thought that was very interesting. As an older child, like I have stories like last week, I think I shared that like just want to do my own thing. Like I'm older, I have my own peers, and it was not cool to include your younger sister or younger sibling to hang out with your friends. But that was an interesting story for me to hear and how that shaped the youngest daughter mom and the oldest daughter relationship and tension that has put in. So it's really interesting how sibling roles that play. Usually, how about you? How's your parents' sibling order?
Yeah, so my dad is youngest. My mom is the only daughter and has an older brother. So there are ways she's definitely carried some of the like emotional labor in our family dynamic, a lot of the emotional labor in our family, both like my nuclear family and then my extended. But yeah, there's just think about how I haven't really gotten to know my mom as an adult until I became an adult. So there are a lot of ways similarly, Trishia, where I felt like my mom and I were so different. And then over time, there's that commercial. I can't remember what life insurance commercial it is, where it's like when you start to become your parent. You know what I'm talking about? Like that. But I realized I'm an astrologer. So once I read my mom's chart, I was, oh, honey, I was shook. I was like, okay, this makes so much sense. But I realized we both have a prominent Cancer placement in our charts. I'm a Cancer sun. She's a Cancer rising, but she's a fire sign. Her birthday was actually on Monday, the 31st. And happy birthday, mommy. I realized like sensitivity for her was expressed in a more fiery way. So I was like very sensitive as a child. And she was also very probably sensitive too, but the way she expressed it was super different. And part of that, I think, as an adult, I'm realizing that my uncle, who was the eldest son, the first son, was highly favored in our Korean family. So especially by my grandma. So there's like those dynamics where like that first son energy comes through, and I hear that cross-culturally that there is this like specific kind of babying or like spoiling of first son or only son. I see a lot of nodding.
Yeah. I think like certain immigrant households, right? Not only are we carrying just that eldest responsibility oftentimes as eldest daughters, but that gender role differentiation as well.
Exactly.
And that could be huge depending on the culture. And in an Asian household, typically, it seems that, of course, the sons are the preferred gender in the household, and they get to have so many more privileges just because they're the son.
Absolutely. I see that. I've had to have pretty direct conversations with my mom. I remember I think in college, I was noticing, since my brother and I are 7 years apart, we've never really been in school together, but I can look back and see, oh, you're in high school now, I'm in college. And there are ways that, first of all, he could have his door closed when company was over in his room. So I was shook. And there are multiple other things. We won't put all that business out there. But where I'd had to sit down with my mom, I remember I was at a mall food court, which is like not an ideal place to have a deep conversation with your mom. There's really no ideal place when your Korean mom doesn't like to have conversations like that. But I was like, oh, Mom, it hurts my feelings to see Fran get to do all the stuff that like I would definitely be at minimum yelled at for. And you just said, oh, that's how he is. That's how boys are. And at first she was just like, I don't understand. You're making it sound like you had the worst childhood ever. A little defensive, but I think she was able to hear. It's like, yeah, I do treat your brother differently for like multiple reasons.
I'm really glad to hear that you were able to have that kind of communication and conversation with your mom. As an adult, I think there are different conversations that we can have with our parents. And like you both were explaining, we also get to know them in a different lens as well as adults. And as we grow and as we learn more about them as an individual and as a human, not just as a mom, and the expectations that we have also, of course, of who a mom should be and how a mom should treat me, right?
As we talk about often, our siblings do sometimes, a lot of times, have a different parents. Those years do make difference. They learn. Oldest kids are guinea pigs, right? For them as parents. So they make mistakes with us. They learn with us. They cry with us in some ways. And they learn, and then they relax. And then sometimes because of us, that we had to go through it, our younger siblings get to have a more chill parents, a little bit more chill parents. I think my sister, a couple years ago, told me that. And then she said, my sister and I, the conflict was that my parents really made me feel not good enough as a leader, older sister. But to my sister, mom and dad always made her feel like I'm perfect. I'm the role model that she needs to follow. So that was a big conflict in our sibling dynamic for a long time. So for her to say, acknowledging and saying it was a lot. That just because my parents were strict. But let me phrase again. My parents were strict, but she realized later through therapy and reflecting that because I went through it and I head on fought with my parents for some of the rules that was just unfair, that my sister actually, she noticed later. And that was such a touching conversation that I got to have because it was really hard. And for me as an oldest daughter, I resented, why did she get to have an easier time? But for her to acknowledge my struggle with my parents, for her to have a better childhood, and they made me see her own struggles too.
It's really interesting. What I'm thinking about is it's not as often, but you know what I will sometimes get when I talk about eldest daughters, especially people will reach out to me from Eldest Daughters Collective and it'll be youngest sibling. It's great that the space is here. And I also wish that there was a space for youngest siblings to talk to their eldest siblings about their experience and to connect in a different way. I've actually had like at least two people tell me that, like one in person and one over Instagram, where they were like, at first they were like, not the youngest coming and trying to co-opt our space. And then I like had to chill out. Oh, I see. Like a heart to heart where they wanted to have a space to also share what it was like to be the youngest. Because I will say the burdens we carry, but there's also a lot of like strength and different social capital I know that I carry in my family being the eldest. So I don't know why that made me think of that. I think, Linda, because you're talking about your youngest and seeing that dynamic, I'm like, oh, I'm so curious what they would say.
I think there is a way for them to also relate to some of the topics that we're talking about, but also I'm sure that they're having thoughts of their own about the ways that they are perceiving like their experience. Of course, there was privilege, but again, we are talking about it in a one-sided story. Yeah, all of us are the eldest after all. Something that Linda and I were also talking about is that the next season of our podcast is going to continue on this journey of talking about being the eldest daughters. However, that we will have multiple more guests that will be in different sibling roles and family dynamics so that we can explore a lot more from different lenses of the families as well.
The tendency towards the martyrdom and like just doing everything myself. And that is a way that I can also create isolation with my brother. Don't include him in things. I'm just so used to like, an example is literally sending flowers to my mom for her birthday. Like, I think also since we have such a big age gap, there are ways like I need to decondition myself and be like, he's an adult, he's grown and probably wants to help and be involved in my life in a different way. But yeah, I had fixed it with, okay, yeah, it would take more work for me to just ask and delegate, but also that's an important thing that I practice so then I'm not burning myself out and then being like, no one helped me, because that's like what my mom did.
Yeah, absolutely. I relate to that so much too, because I also have a younger brother and he's distanced himself from us and me, my life and my family's life a lot. And it's part of it is that he wanted to have his individual identity and personality and all of that great things. And we have also isolated him too, right? Like we have also fed into the narrative, like you're not responsible enough to do this, right? You're not this enough to be taking care of this. And so the change in the narrative actually within our family dynamic started with my mom. And I began to recognize that too. When my mom was saying, when we had family gatherings, she would directly ask my brother, like, how come you're not the one picking up the cake? Like, how come you don't do this? Because I want to receive this from my son. And she started requesting directly, oh, I want you to be involved in taking up some responsibility. And I believe that as a grown-up now, that you are capable of doing that.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story, Sujin. My mom, that's a fascinating story because my mom's quite the opposite. We don't have a son, and me and my sister occasionally talk about how we do not have a brother, but we have this trauma of having imaginary brother because we knew what kind of treatment we would have gotten if we had a brother, because we can see it from how my mom treats her little brother, my uncle. They're 12 years apart. That's a big age gap, I see. So she pretty much says that I raised him and she babies him so much. He's late 40s now. Doesn't matter. Baby. She acts like this strict mother-in-law when my grandmother doesn't even care. His wife, he babies him, is just unbelievable. And it's sad that some mothers, depending on where they are in their journey, recognizing it. But if I had a brother, I would have such a different experience, even more oldest daughter syndrome.
I don't know how my mom came to that realization because we as a family, we have babied my brother, my younger brother, and I called him my baby brother for the longest time too. Even as an adult, when I would introduce him, I'll be like, this is my baby brother. He had everything taken care of. He was so spoiled. Still is, honestly. He still is. But yeah, I think I definitely would love to explore with my mom. Hey, what made you realize that you wanted to take have more shared responsibilities with my brother. Talking about responsibilities, we wanted to touch a little bit about careers too today, and how a lot of eldest daughters take on leadership roles. And everything that we're talking about in the family dynamic, in the family household, has a lot to do with leadership, right? And I think in society as well, in career paths, we do take up a lot of leadership roles as well. Of course, there's a lot of gender barriers, though, in being an actual leader and being recognized as a leader in society, too. So there's a lot that eldest daughters are navigating in society in their careers. I'm curious to hear about both of your thoughts on that, and also to personally discuss about, like, how did you both choose your career paths?
Sure. My dad studied computer science when he was in school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do coming from the slums of Manila. If I can teach that to myself, if I can learn that, like not knowing anything, then, I can help you. You can definitely do it. You're so smart. So I was shepherded into tech, and I think it was a little bit of a unique situation just because it was like when we had moved to the United States from the Philippines, my dad had gotten a job in New York because of like the dot-com revolution, right? So I had the privilege of having some technological things already like at my disposal pretty early. So I think that definitely helped set me up. And like the narrative that was told to me as I was growing up was always like, if your mom and your dad are not here, then you have to be the one. You're the head of the family. You have to be the one to take care of your siblings. And yeah, so I think like going into my career also, like I very quickly noticed that a lot of people wouldn't take opportunities, or they wouldn't volunteer for stuff, a project that will come up and then you're looking for somebody to lead. And I think in my head, I'm just like, okay, nobody wants to do it, so I guess I will. So it's piggybacking off of what Eugen had said earlier, learning how to delegate or not take everything on has been a lot of it a struggle. And the journey of moving through that has been a fun one at the very least. But yeah, I think thankfully I have always been nurtured into the leadership aspect, but I think I'm still constantly learning how to be a better leader every day. And especially working with Eugen and seeing how she leads like the rest of our organizing group. It's just so beautiful. I want to cry every time. Like, things have to be done. I want to do stuff too. Like, we have responsibilities. There's stuff in my house that needs to get done. We have to work, like all of these. And yeah, so it's been funny to try and get out of constantly being in action. And one of the things that I love like exploring with other eldest daughters also is just letting yourself rest, or not volunteering, just like letting there be silence. Someone's, who wants to volunteer for this? And I don't always have to like raise my hand or like just volunteer myself for something.
Yes, so much resonance with what Trishia has shared. And I'm thinking about your question too, Sujin, around like leadership. I'm grappling with like the difference between leadership and taking initiative, which for me has always been linked. And like taking initiative, being the one to do it was one, not only leadership, but also like a love language. A lot of the way like both of my parents express love for our family was by providing. So whether it's like providing physically, like your food, clothes on your back, but also my mom is such a huge acts of service person. That's her like top love language. And something I've had to work through as an eldest daughter was like, what happens when I don't feel of service? Am I still worthy of receiving help and love? Am I still being needed here? And that's manifested in like across all of my relationships, where I felt like unless I'm helping or being of service or in a way like playing my role correctly, like doing my job well, whether it's my professional job or like my job as your friend, my job as a daughter, it always felt like there was a correct way of doing something. And then when I was falling short, it would be hard. It would be hard for me to give grace to myself. I would start to like self-isolate because I felt ashamed. So it's something like I've had to be very conscious of, is I do have this conditioned belief that I need to be of service or helping or being really good at something or good at something for you to be loved and needed. And that's sometimes manifested in like my work too, where most of my career I've been in some type of social issue, social justice work. So domestic violence work, substance abuse work, and in a lot of people-centered relational roles, talking about really hard stuff. And I had to grapple with like my own burnout from the field. I'm sure as you like these types of fields, especially like mental health related or trauma related, are high burnout. I had to shift out of doing that direct service work and going more into like programming and different types of leadership, where I had to untangle it from my identity as being like a helper.
Yeah.
And being like, I'm still helping. I can't actually be of help to anyone if I'm burnt out and resentful, which is where it was going.
Yeah, yeah. Eugene, I think that's so relatable for so many eldest daughters, right? The fact that we're leaders puts us in a position of replaying that caregiving role again and again, even in our workplace, right?
Yes.
That we take on the responsibility more and more, even though we are put in a position where we should be delegating. And we often are very not good at that. And we've never been taught to delegate as well as eldest daughters, and especially in immigrant family households. And so for the first time, we're learning how to navigate those processes.
As we are coming to the end, the time goes by fast whenever we talk about Eldest Daughter. We would love to learn more about how the audience can find your information about Eldest Daughter Collective, how to find you, what is coming up, and how people can get involved.
You can find us on Instagram if you use that at Eldest Daughters Collective. And then our website is eldestdaughterscollective.com. If you're not on Instagram, we have a link tree where we put all of our registration for our events in that place. So you don't need to have social media to stay connected with us. And then our email is eldestdaughterscollective@gmail.com. For if folks are interested in connecting more directly or collaborating with us, we'd love to hear from you.
We, Linda and I, have been taking advantage of your resources as well. So we definitely appreciate the opportunity and the community that you both have built.
Thank you. Thank you both for uplifting not only Eldest Daughters' voices, but just the larger community. It's so critical. And yeah, thank you for being who I wanted to see when I was young. It's really sweet to be in community with you.
Thank you for listening for Yellow Chair Collective, the podcast. If you have found any value from the show, please follow us at Yellow Chair Collective on Instagram and go on our website, yellowchaircollective.com, if you would like our services.